Trust us when we tell you that Patty's Pub played an extremely important part in history.
What part of history might that be?
The cracking of the Liberty Bell, of course.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And I am Dan Simon, broadcasting from Studio Simon in Louisville, Kentucky.
Dan, good morning. Hello, how are you?
Good morning to you, Paul. I am fantastic. How are things in your neck of the woods?
Funny that you would talk about my neck of the woods, because this is a special and fun episode for me, because we're going to be talking about my native Philadelphia. The All-Star Game, Major League Baseball All-Star Game, is coming to Philly next year. And the All-Star Game logo this year, as it has all four times the Phillies have hosted the All-Star Game, features the Liberty Bell. It seems to me that the Liberty Bell is something that I only see when I'm hosting someone who has never been there before. It's not something that like Philadelphians really go to a lot. And yet it has become iconic for Philadelphia, right? Like it's become the sort of go-to thing to represent Philadelphia. Can you think of another, what's another thing that represents one city so iconically like the Liberty Bell does with Philadelphia? Maybe the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco?
Yes, of course. In New York, you actually have several because it's New York, but right. the Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building.
Sure.
So there's two there. You know what? This question came up when I'm actually looking at something here in my office. I developed the brand identity for the baseball winter meetings 12 years in a row. And the winter meetings were in various places, Dallas, Nashville. One year, it was actually here in Louisville, but that was kind of an outlier. Boston, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, New Orleans, Atlanta. And when designing that logo, one of the questions was, okay, what are we going to put in the logo to represent that city? And actually, Indianapolis was an interesting city. When I was talking to my client, who at the time was the, I guess, director of marketing at minor league baseball, Brian Earl, we were talking about, okay, what are we going to use to represent Indianapolis? And that city did not really have an iconic piece of architecture or whatever. There's a fountain in Indianapolis. That was like the one thing in Indianapolis that was a physical feature that people in the city would recognize. But that's the kind of the point here. People in the city would recognize, but the logo, I felt, needs to resonate. This is not like when you're doing a minor league team identity. When you're doing a logo for an event that is drawing a lot of people from out of town, from out of that city, the logo needs to resonate with those people who are not from there and may never have been there before.
Right.
And so having this fountain that, as I said, I was not aware of it until I did my research, we felt would not be a good icon to have in the logo. And what we ended up doing was a auto racing theme,
Sure.
The Indianapolis 500, because that's what people from out of town, many people associate with Indianapolis. So
it seems like you almost have to sort of get rid of that disinclination to not do the obvious thing, right? Like there are certain times where like the obvious thing is going to be okay because you're trying to appeal to people, you're trying to appeal to sort of a wide swath of people and you want to choose the most iconic thing. I remember when the Phillies came out with their City Connects, which I don't really particularly love. And I was just like, don't do a Liberty Bell. Please don't do the Liberty Bell. Please give us a Rocky Boxing Gloves or Independence Hall or something, right? Like give us the Constitution. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that all this attention that Philadelphia has gotten has caused me to do, it has caused me to learn how to pronounce and spell the word semi-quincentennial.
Okay, which is being represented by which minor league team? They just
Yeah,
unveiled
the
alternate
Somerset
identity.
Patriots.
Yeah,
The Somerset Patriots are doing this. They're going to play as the semi-quincentennials. SEMIQUINCENTENNIALS.
I think that is without a doubt the longest name for a team ever on a jersey. I saw the jersey, and that is
Yeah,
one long word.
19 letters.
Yeah.
So
You knew that off the top of your head?
I remember it because I wrote about it for sportslogos.net, and they have a logo that has 19 stars in it because of the 19 letters in semi-quincentennials. So, Dan, like you said, we're off track, but we're talking about hashtag America 250. You know, that's how come a lot of stuff's happening in Philadelphia next year, of course, where the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. So my native Philadelphia will be in the limelight for entirety of 2026. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping to get to that All-Star game. It'll be my first ever All-Star game. I'm excited for Philadelphia, and I'm excited for this episode because Todd is great. Todd is always so generous with his time and such a fun conversation always. So I'm looking forward to talking to Todd. We're going to talk to Mitchell Kramer, a tour guide from Philly, and then you're going to be back with a Studio Simon Stumper.
I will, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to listening to your talk with your two guests, and I hope all of your listeners are also looking forward to it.
Oh, I bet they are. And more vocabulary, more spelling of words coming.
And counting how many letters are in
And
the word.
counting letters.
Okay.
right.
We'll see you in a bit.
See you soon, Dan. I am so pleased to have once again on Baseball by Design the second ever guest on Baseball by Design, designer extraordinaire, baseball glitterati, Todd Radom. Todd, good morning. How you doing?
Paul, it's so good to see you. Does that make me like the Larry Doby of your show, or Buzz Aldrin, or some famous seconds?
Famous seconds. Yeah, it's I think Larry Doby's actually sort of the perfect comparison there. Hey, you're in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is my hometown. It is a place I care about a lot. The All-Star Game is going to be there next year. My brother's a season ticket holder. I'm going to be at the All-Star Game. I was at Citizens Bank Park when the 2026 All-Star Game logo was unveiled. So I'm pretty excited about the fact that the All-Star Game is going to be in Philadelphia next year. One of the things that I find super, super interesting, and you have written about All-Star logos in Philadelphia, and to be clear, you have not designed any of the logos that we're going to talk about here, but you are a baseball logo, not just a designer and a commentator, but a historian as well. And so I want to talk to you about some of the historian work that you've done and the Philadelphia All-Star logos. That is quite the intro. I want to talk about the Liberty Bell, Todd.
Let's talk about the Liberty Bell, Paul. I want to talk about the Liberty Bell. It never gets old saying it. I don't know. It's it contains multitudes. It means so much to so many different types of people, and it is, sometimes visual cliches are the best things to go with. And yeah, it may be an uninspiring choice to some, but and I think we could talk about that. But it's the symbol of Philly. It communicates a lot very effortlessly.
Well, so there have been 4 All-Star games hosted by the Phillies. There have been 5 in Philadelphia, but the 1943 one was hosted by the then Philadelphia A's turned Kansas City A's turned Oakland A's turned Sacramento A's turned maybe Vegas A's. We'll see. That was 1943. You wrote an article saying that the 1952 All-Star Game logo was the first real Major League Baseball All-Star Game logo. So I want to get into that in a second, but I do want to run through the 4 All-Star games that the Phillies have hosted. 1952, Liberty Bell logo. 1976, 2 Liberty Bells in that logo. Not 1, but 2. It's like a Liberty Bell keychain holding a Liberty Bell. That was 1976. 1996, I did not get to that one, but I did get to the Fan Fest held at the Convention Center. That's the closest I've ever been to an All-Star game. Guess what? Liberty Bell in that one. And then the newly released one, and our friend Chris Kramer wrote up a great article about it on sportslogos.net. The newly released one features, surprise, the Liberty Bell. And, here's the Liberty Bell. It is, in this one, it's swinging. There's a sort of kinetic element to it, and it looks like the Liberty Bell is actually ringing. Todd, I have a Philadelphia tour guide / historian on next after you here. So we're going to get deep into the history of the Liberty Bell and why it's a symbol of Philadelphia. Yeah.
Love it.
We're digging deep on this one, Todd. But I'm curious from your perspective, now as a resident of Philadelphia for several years, right? It's been a couple of years now, at
3
least?
years, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You and I got together, had a beer in Fishtown. That was totally fun last summer. I was really glad to be able to do that and hang out with you and just talk about all sorts of things. So you're in Philly now for 3 years. You're right. I think visual cliche is one way to describe it. It does seem like it's everywhere, and it's not just in the All-Star game. Like the Phillies have incorporated it into their branding. Any conference or convention or whatever is going to have the Liberty Bell incorporated into its branding. Is there something else? You as a designer, if someone came to you and said, we're going to design a Philly thing, in your 3 years in Philly, is there something else that you think would be so easily tied to the city of Philadelphia?
You could go with pretzels, you can go with hoagies, but I don't know that those would resonate outside of the vicinity of Philadelphia, Paul. I think that if you think about civic landmarks, a couple of cities really can lean into something that no one else can. If you're doing a logo for some event in St. Louis, you're sort of obligated to lean into the Gateway Arch.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like it. It communicates St. Louis in the most effortless way imaginable. Now think big cities, Los Angeles, for example. There's no one real clear visual element that communicates LA. You can go with a lot of things. And think all-star logos, because those are usually pretty, intuitive and good examples. New York, it's so big, right? One big building looks like the next big building for the most part.
Yeah.
The Statue of Liberty, the Brooklyn Bridge, I don't know, I'm kind of riffing. So all of it is to say that I think if you are embarking upon an all-star game logo for the game that takes place here in Philly, you might explore a few other things, but at the end of the day, you get back to the Liberty Bell, and maybe that's a good place to be.
I recently ran the Philadelphia Half Marathon, #humblebrag, and it went past like all the landmarks. It went past Independence Hall and City Hall, and and the bridges down by South Street, and there's a ton of landmarks in Philadelphia. It started at the Art Museum with the Rocky statue, and anyone who was not from Philly, once they finished the half marathon, of course, if they still had the legs, they were running up the Art Museum stairs doing the the Rocky thing, and so I think you're right that there are a lot of things to Philadelphians that represent Philadelphia, but when you get outside the city of Philadelphia, what to someone who's not familiar with that place, what is the thing? And I think it is the Liberty Bell, but man, you sure see it everywhere on all things Philly. You mentioned Los Angeles, and I think it's funny because the thing that I immediately jumped to is the Santa Monica Pier with the Ferris wheel, and people will argue that Santa Monica isn't really part of Los Angeles anyway, and so
and also, if I can interject, Paul, think about just to the uninitiated person who has never been to Los Angeles or never been to Philadelphia, and whatever this logo is needs to communicate outside of its local area. Well, Chicago has a pretty nice Ferris wheel out on Navy Pier.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, a Ferris wheel is a Ferris wheel is a Ferris wheel. There's one in London.
Yeah. Right.
Right? But there is no Liberty Bell that exists outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And the form of it is such a familiar one. It's got 250 years of equity.
Yeah.
Look at it that way. Independence Hall is a pretty cool looking building. The Phillies, of course, used that as their primary logo back in the 80s. But I don't know that 8 out of 10 people could identify that outside of the city of Philadelphia at first glance.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. The Philly soft pretzel, though, there's intriguing possibilities there because that's not like any other soft pretzel in the world. That is a distinctive thing. It's 4 of them sold in a paper bag by a guy on a street corner, and there's no holes in the Philly soft pretzel. It's all squished together. If you want to get one that's more sort of sanitized and not sold by a guy on a street corner, you just go to the Wawa. So it's
And think about the Phillies lettering. Their jersey lettering
yeah,
reflects, a Philly pretzel in a certain way. So
sure.
I think they got that going for them.
I once reached out to the team. This was years ago. I reached out to the team and I asked them what the name of their font was, and they said it was a custom internally designed font. Did you do it?
I did not, but I know what the name of it is.
Well, it's one of my favorite names to say. I'm going to let you say it.
Scriptwurst.
Scriptwurst.
WURST. Scriptwurst.
Like sausage font.
It is a Type 1 font. I have it sitting here, and it's unusable. You'd have to convert it because it's so old at this point. Dates back to 1992, Paul. It's ancient history.
Scriptwurst. Well, it is one of my favorite things. And they just volunteered it right up. They just said, yeah, here's what it's called. It's, custom font. I do have a question about the history of the Philadelphia All-Star game and these logos. In that article, you said that the 1952 one was the first real logo for an All-Star game. What makes that determination? Because there were All-Star games before that, and surely there was some sort of visual representation. What is it that made that Liberty Bell logo the first real All-Star game logo?
So, Paul, it's hard to imagine, but there was once a world before a Fanatics where you could buy a sweatshirt with with a touch of your finger on your phone and have it delivered up to you tomorrow. There was a world before licensing of any kind where really the All-Star game as an event, the players came in, they played a game in the afternoon, and they went home that night. There was no home run derby. There's no fan fest or whatever it's called now. So as an exercise, it was a day on the calendar, and the only visual representation of that game pretty much was attached to things like ticket stubs or a ticket order form, which was on a piece of paper, not a uniform patch, no such thing for a long, long time. So the 1952 logo is unique and special because it is the first. This logo, this representation logo, is included on the cover of the game program, for example. It is included in advertising and collateral pages in the sporting news, for example, welcoming fans and journalists to Philadelphia for the game. So it was used in a lot of different ways that would be used at the time, not on one thing, not a one-off, not on a media pin or an ashtray or something like that, but on a bunch of stuff. So it was very cohesive. And in a way, the Phillies in 1952, think about the fact that, the team is a young, pretty successful team. They win the National League pennant in 1950, get smoked by the Yankees in the World Series. And the Philadelphia Athletics, who were considered to be a kind of moribund franchise running on fumes at that point, they would move out of Philly in 1954, 55, become the Kansas City A's, as you mentioned. Phillies are a pretty innovative marketing organization for the era. So that logo is seen in a bunch of different places.
It's fascinating. The whole notion of there wasn't a logo for the All-Star game is pretty incredible.
And Paul, you mentioned the 1976 game, which is the next one that's played here in Philly, Veterans Stadium 76. There's no real logo for that game. The logo, quote unquote, that you reference is the media pin. So it is a dangling medallion, a pin that is given to the working press there. So if you look at, for example, the All-Star Game program, I have a copy of that here. Or, again, there's no sleeve patch at that point. They used a bunch of different stuff. There was not one cohesive thing. And it seems really weird to contemporary ears to hear, for example, that there's no actual World Series logo until 1978.
Wow.
It just doesn't mesh with what we're used to, but that's the fact.
Living in Philadelphia, have you had to learn how to spell and pronounce semi-quincentennial?
I'm avoiding it, Paul. I'm avoiding it at all costs because I'm old enough to remember the bicentennial.
Right.
And and it's just it's too much to think about. I just think about I'm thinking hashtag 250 here.
All right, there you go. That's a lot easier. That's 4 characters right there.
Yeah.
All right, last question about All-Star game and logos. You, of course, have created a number of special event logos, including All-Star games, in different sports, not just baseball. as a designer, that's a different kind of challenge, right? Like it's a different kind of challenge than designing something for a specific team, and mostly because of how much stuff there is to sort of cram into it. When you're when you're given an all-star game logo, or when you accept a project like that, i- is there a starting point? Like, how do you get your head around all the sort of junk, the sponsors, the representations of the sport and the city and the team? How do you start getting your head around, okay, how am I going to get all of these things into this one identifying mark?
It's a great question. Before I address it, I just want to say I was at the 96 All-Star game at Veterans Stadium.
Ah,
I'm hopefully going to be there at this coming one. We'll see what happens. But to answer your question, All-Star game logos, or single special event logos, let's call them, are sort of like streaking comets that go in the night, right? They are meant to shoot across the sky and fracture out. They are not meant to be permanent. So you want to really capture, it's okay if they're kind of, I don't know, trendy looking or look like, the 19, I don't know, 70, what can we say? Some All-Star Game logo from the 80s, the 1989 All-Star Game logo for Major League Baseball looks like 1989, and that's okay. It represents a moment in time. Now, ideally, you want to incorporate the city or region that it's being played in. Again, it's not every league takes the same approach these days. NBA All-Star Game logos, for example, are very, very standardized. The NFL doesn't even have an All-Star, no more Pro Bowl really to speak of, right? The NHL logo is pretty unique from year to year. They do it well. MLB still does it pretty well. So you need to capture a sense of place, depending upon, it is a league event. It's not a team event. And quite often, it's a partnership. So the team that is hosting the game will want to have some piece of their DNA in there. Color-wise, it used to be far more overt, but you've got to work in the case of MLB with that MasterCard logo. That's always going to be cited at the bottom. NHL handles a little bit differently. Bridgestone, for example, which, I'm going to pivot to the Winter Classic. They have that right in the middle of the logo. It's not outside of the logo. So we're all getting into, if you'll pardon the pun, inside baseball here. But it's structural, it's aesthetic, and it's leaning into a moment in time and a certain place.
Well, it's certainly, I mean, logo design is hard enough as it is, so I can imagine with all of those extra challenges that it takes a real special talent to get it right. And like I said, you've done so many, and I appreciate you hopping on and talking about the game that's going to be held in your hometown. I hope that you are there, because I am already in talks with Big Brother Dave about finding our way there next year. He's a season ticket holder, so that's my in to the All-Star game next year. Should be my first one, so I'm super excited. Maybe we can grab another beer this time.
We will. I will definitely be around.
Okay. All right.
To the extent that we know we will be around 6 months from now. You know what I'm saying. But I am looking forward to that.
Well, Todd, thank you for hopping on and talking about the All-Star game. ToddRadom.com is the website. You can find all of Todd's socials there. And also, one of my favorite books I'm now holding up, even though it's an audio-only podcast, my signed copy of Winning Ugly by Todd Radom. And also, Todd, I didn't show this to you when I was there. I have a Todd Radom baseball card.
There you go. Yes, I am ubiquitous. Also, an opportunity to note, Paul, before you let me go, the Ballpark and Beyond, a new book coming late May 2026. It is just about fully baked, about to go to the printer. 75,000 words, 160 original illustrations, stories that span the baseball universe from the 1840s up to the present day.
Well, Todd, get your sign-in pen ready, because that's going to be one that I need to track down, and I have given Winning Ugly as a gift to a number of people too. So it's we get it out there in the world. Todd, thank you so much. Hey, we're going to see you soon on another episode of Baseball by Design, and appreciate your time.
Always good to see you, Paul. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I am so pleased to have on the podcast living history interpreter Mitchell Kramer, who plays Ben Franklin. You can find him at bfranklin.org. Mitchell, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Paul.
We chatted before we got going on the podcast whether we were going to be talking to you as your Benjamin Franklin character or as Mitchell Kramer, and we decided to go with you, the actual Mitchell Kramer. You mentioned that you've been on the field at Phillies games. Obviously, it was this portrayal that you do. What was the circumstance there? When were you on the field at Citizens Bank?
The last time I did it was when they were in the World Series. So it's been a couple of years since I've been with the Phillies.
I imagine that that is a ton of fun. Obviously, though, we're here to talk about the Liberty Bell. And in addition to your living history, you give tours in Philadelphia as well.
I do.
I imagine people who come to Philadelphia are familiar with the Liberty Bell. They associate the city with the Liberty Bell, but they maybe couldn't exactly tell you why. They couldn't tell you, like, oh, yeah, this is the thing that makes the Liberty Bell
Exactly.
famous. What makes the
Exactly.
Liberty Bell famous? Why is it so famous? Why is it associated with Philadelphia?
Well, it's associated with Philadelphia because it lives here and because it was our state house bell. So the Pennsylvania State House, which we call Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were both debated and voted on, is the home of the Liberty Bell. And the Liberty Bell was originally ordered as the State House bell. When I say ordered, it was made in England and brought here to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Pennsylvania's new charter. So Pennsylvania is founded in 1682, and in 1701, William Penn, the founder, creates a new charter, a second charter, where he expands on the laws of the people, on the notions that the people of Pennsylvania will have greater power and greater religious freedom. And so, on the 50th anniversary of this new 1701 charter, the Pennsylvania State House, specifically the president of the Pennsylvania State House, Isaac Norris, orders a commemorative bell. So, when they order the bell from England and they have it inscribed with this quote from the Bible, proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all the inhabitants thereof. At that moment, they're specifically talking about religious liberty. So they order it from Whitechapel Foundry at the top, who will later make the bells that will become Big Ben, which is much later and they're much bigger. But at the time that they order the Liberty Bell, it has these sort of three distinct features. One, it's the largest bell that's ever been made. It is unnecessarily large. And it's engraved. It's intended to go up into this tower, so nobody's going to see the engraving or how large it is. This is really assumed that it's the Pennsylvania Assembly showing off how successful they've become.
Okay.
And the third feature that makes the Liberty Bell interesting, which again at this point is called the Pennsylvania State House, is that when they get it off the boat, the Hibernia, and they unbox it. Benjamin Franklin is actually there that day, 1752. Now a year has passed. It's how do I put this politely? It's a piece of garbage. It is cracking almost
Oh
immediately.
no.
So they almost immediately melt it down and recast it. Interestingly, the men who are hired to do this, Pass and Stowe, have never done anything like it. These are guys who are making horseshoes. They have no idea what they're doing, and they do a terrible job of it. They add more copper and they re-engrave it. They cast it with the same metal. And again, it begins to fail. It is a public joke how poorly it's supposed to have this beautiful middle C ring. It's got a D flat ring.
Oh no.
So basically, they stick it in the closet. They try to send it back. They try to get their money back, and they order another bell, and they basically stick it in the closet and forget all about it.
So it's already, as soon as it arrives, it's already cracking, not through any dramatic event, but just because it's poorly made.
Yes,
They melt it down, they cast it again, and it's still not that great. And so, like you say, they stick this giant, midlife crisis bell that they ordered just to show off. They stick that in a closet. I,
and that's it. And as far as the original intention for the bell, that's the end of the story, or would be.
Okay.
So now we have the American Revolution. The bell actually is removed from Philadelphia during when the British come in 1777, and during the occupation, the bell is taken out to Allentown, but not because of any significance, only to save the metal. They just don't want the British to get a hold of all this metal to melt it down and turn it into cannons. So it lives in the basement of a church in Allentown for a while, and then they bring it back. But again, nobody cares. This has no significance. This is just a useless broken bell. And the myth that it rang on July 4th or July 8th, 1776 is just that. It's a myth
Right.
that will be written years later. So in the 1830s, the bell has been brought out. It's rung along with other bells for certain. It's rung at the death of Benjamin Franklin, at the death of George Washington, along with the other city bells. But again, it's just a city bell. But starting in the 1830s, we begin to see the emergence of the anti-slavery societies, the abolitionists. One of the abolitionist newspapers, and there's different reports. Some say it's a New York abolitionist newspaper, some say it's a Massachusetts abolitionist newspaper, but one of them publishes a poem called The Liberty Bell. And this poem is about a broken bell. It has now become a metaphor. It is the symbol of liberty unheard, liberty unspoken.
Oh.
Where is our voice? This has become a symbol of the abolitionists. And famously, William Lloyd Garrison, the head of the Anti-Slavery Society of Massachusetts, republishes this poem on the cover of his anti-slavery newspaper in Massachusetts, The Liberator. And this publication of the Liberator's poem becomes essentially a logo. The Liberty Bell now in the late 1830s becomes the logo for the anti-slavery movement with its publication its reprinting by William Lloyd Garrison.
This is the beginning then of how we go from this is scrap metal, essentially,
Yes.
to now this has become a symbol of something. So my question was going to be, how did we go from it's a joke, it's scrap metal, to it is the symbol of all things Philadelphia?
Right. So, in response to the anti slavery movement adopting the Liberty Bell as their logo, we see a story written in which the Liberty Bell is turned into a patriotic symbol. This story appears in this magazine. It's this made up story. Is the story of the man, the bell toller at Independence Hall, who rings the bell on July 4th, 1776. But this story doesn't come out until years later and is generally now sort of considered a, a reaction, a backlash to the bell becoming an anti-slavery symbol, and it now starts to become a patriotic symbol.
Hmm.
So now it's been sort of reimagined. Now the bell is simultaneously this anti-slavery logo and also beginning to be a patriotic symbol. And this is really where the bell begins to see itself as the old state house bell and as this sort of one of these symbols. And really, you have to remember that until we start to get into the middle of the 19th century, this idea of preserving houses and preserving buildings and preserving objects and places from the revolution hasn't really taken off. But now, as we get into the middle of the 19th century, we're beginning to see this sort of rediscovery of our colonial period and of our revolutionary period.
So after the revolutionary period, then, my sort of rudimentary understanding of it from, taking fourth grade field trips to see the Liberty Bell is that it then became the State House bell for like 90 years. Have we reached that point, or did it get melted down and recast one more time before that?
No, this is it. So now,
Okay.
but it does disappear for a while.
Oh, okay.
Because a new bell is installed, and now it's just sitting in a closet somewhere. It
Again.
turns out. In fact, at some point in this period, it's supposed to be hauled away. And to this day, there's a family that claims that they were given the Liberty Bell as junk and they're supposed to melt it down and they claim that they own it. So now we enter into the Civil War. And with the Civil War, we see the Liberty Bell beginning to, well, one, the crack starts to become much larger. They have been ringing it over and over. The Liberty Bell really has 1,000 cracks.
Okay.
It's cracked all over the place, lots of little cracks. So they're going to melt it down, they're going to sell it, and it just doesn't get moved. So it's put into a back room. A new tower is built on Independence Hall, and it's just sitting there. But now, as we leave the Civil War, that's the end. We've ended slavery. So that's the end of the abolitionist movement. So now the Liberty Bell is beginning to be a patriotic symbol, and we see it put on a train and it starts to travel. And
Oh,
now it will begin to travel. It had traveled to the White City, it travels to the Great Chicago World's Fair,
oh,
and it travels to the Panama World's Fair, and it goes out to San Francisco, and it now is sort of used as this symbol of Reconstruction. And now everyone in America gets a chance to see it, and it is on these trips where people start to knock off little pieces of it and they create this large crack in order to sort of stabilize it, and they take the metal and Philadelphia City Council makes little tie tacks, and they give it out to members of the city council. And now the old State House bell, the Liberty Bell, is becoming this patriotic symbol.
how do we go from there to its current home, which is, at a National Park Service site where it is upheld as this patriotic symbol?
In July 1876, the first real World's Fair in the New World, in North America, is going to take place in Philadelphia. And this centennial World's Fair is this enormous celebration. They say 12 million people came to Philadelphia, and immediately before it, in late June, we have this startling event. This is when the Battle of the Little Bighorn takes place. So just as we are in the middle of this World's Fair, this celebration, this centennial, America is they literally have just heard about this major event, which today feels differently. But you have to imagine what it would have felt like to learn of the destruction of the Seventh Cavalry and General Custer at the time. So on July 4th, 1876. They are having this celebration right outside Independence Hall, which is now Independence Hall. It's been renamed, and now they are displaying the Liberty Bell. And on July 4th, the great great grandson of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, Richard Henry Lee IV, is out on the field in front of Independence Hall, and he is reading the Declaration of Independence. And when I say he's reading the Declaration of Independence, he actually is holding the actual signed copy, the engrossed copy of the Declaration of Independence, which is today, so perfectly preserved at the National Archives. Nobody would think to take it out. And as he comes to the end of it, we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. At that moment, a woman walks out from the crowd and hands him a piece of paper and says, "Read this." And he ignores her. And so she comes back. And there's different reports now. Some people say that she pushed him out of the way. Some people say she just stands in front of him. But this woman begins to read a new document, which had been written in France and translated at Seneca Falls, New York. And this is called the Declaration of the Rights of Women. And this is Susan B. Anthony.
Uh-huh.
And she is introducing the suffragette movement. She is reintroducing the suffragette movement. And they adopt the old abolitionist logo as their logo. And now the Liberty Bell becomes the logo of the suffragette movement.
So the Liberty Bell has served as the logo for the abolitionist movement, the suffragette movement, and the 2026 All-Star Game.
That's right. And so much more. At this point, really, it begins to become a symbol of any underdog. Anyone who speaks up, who says, "Where is my liberty? Why is liberty broken?" begins to use the Liberty Bell. Throughout history, Martin Luther King Jr. stands in front of the Liberty Bell and gives speeches. Nelson Mandela, the Dalai Lama, all will evoke the Liberty Bell. But simultaneously, it is also this patriotic symbol.
So when was the bell officially taken out of service? What was the last time it ever rang? And then when was it basically, stashed away as a tourist spot instead of, a functioning bell?
First of all, it begins to travel, and it is obvious when it returns somewhere around the end of World War One. It becomes obvious the Liberty Bell can't travel anymore. It's just too fragile. And as we end World War One and we go into World War Two, the Liberty Bell gets evoked often. FDR speaks of the Liberty Bell, and it is rung on D-Day. And it's actually recorded, and they play a recording for all of the soldiers that are going to land on the beaches of France to drive the Nazis out of Europe. And that is generally considered the last time the bell is rung. And ever since then, when they ring the Liberty Bell, they're really tapping it. And you'll see to this day, the Liberty Bell will be gently tapped to indicate special events. But again, these are gentle taps because the bell is too fragile to actually ring.
Well, it's such a fascinating story, and I really appreciate you taking the time to tell this whole story. It's really fascinating.
Well, thank you. And I have to tell you, I've sort of saved the best for
Oh,
last.
let's
And I
hear it.
know,
Okay. So,
all right. So, in the course of this brief conversation, I've now said the word liberty like 100 times.
yeah.
So, generally, when I talk about the Liberty Bell, which obviously I'm enthusiastic about and I do often, I generally ask people, well, what is liberty? And I always remind people that liberty is actually not freedom or tolerance. It's something more. And so I generally put it this way, and forgive me, I've said this many times. You, Paul, you own things, you own possessions, but you own something else that is far more valuable than your house or your land. And that is your faith or your conviction or your ethics or your honesty. Those are your liberties. And nobody, you can't sell your honesty or your opinion, but people will try to take it away from you.
Hmm.
And that, your right to speak your mind, your liberty is inalienable. And that is the difference between freedom and liberty.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mitchell. I really appreciate that. Before we chatted, I was noodling around on bfranklin.org, your website. You've got some great pictures with some notable celebrities like Jason Kelsey. This might be the second most famous photo of a Kelsey on the internet these days here. So
Sure.
that's a good one. Ken Burns, the famous filmmaker, obviously. So I would encourage everyone to go check out bfranklin.org. It's really great to see you as Ben Franklin out
Thanks,
there
Paul.
in Philadelphia. Mitchell, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Go Phils, go Birds.
Thank you, sir. Go Birds, go Phils.
Welcome back, everyone. It is time for Studio Simon Stumpers. Dan, we know so much more than we used to about the Liberty Bell, but we're not here to talk about the Liberty Bell anymore, Dan. We are here to talk about your Studio Simon Stumper related to Philadelphia, All-Star Games, Sesquicentennials. What do you got for us, Dan?
Well, I remember this All-Star game very well for a particular reason, which I will not go into because I don't know if anything I say might give away the answer to the Studio Simon Stumper.
Mm.
So let's just get to our questions.
Oh,
Okay, our Studio Simon Stumper today asks, what player who grew up in the Philadelphia area, did I just say Philadelphia?
I love it.
Um,
Yeah, let's stick with that.
what player who grew up in the Philadelphia area was the MVP of the All-Star game the last time it was played in Philadelphia? Was it A, Reggie Jackson, B, Mike Piazza, or C, Jamie Moyer? Now, before you suss this one out, if you don't already know it right off the top of your head, which I did.
I think I might just know this one. The answer that jumped into my head was one of the options that you gave me. So
Okay.
I think I know this one.
All three of these players genuinely was born in and grew up in the Philadelphia area, if not directly in Philadelphia. So it was a thrill for this person to win the MVP award, playing basically in front of his friends and family.
Okay. So like I said, I think I just straight up know this answer, but I'll do a little bit of assessing. The last time the All-Star game was in Philadelphia will be exactly 30 years prior to the next time it will be in Philadelphia. So it was 1996. I had the t-shirt for a long time. I made the mistake of buying a white t-shirt, which those just don't last. So a little bit late for Reggie Jackson. Jamie Moyer did get to win a World Series with the Phillies, but I don't recall him being an all-star. Certainly don't recall him as a pitcher winning the MVP of the All-Star game. The most logical answer that I can think of is drafted in the millionth round by Tommy Lasorda. I'm going to go Mike Piazza. B, Mike Piazza. Final answer.
And your final answer, Paul, is correct. Now, with regard to him being drafted by Tommy Lasorda did not do the drafting. He was the manager of the Dodgers who did indeed draft him, I believe, in the 68th round. Mike Piazza was born in Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is about 20 miles northwest of Philadelphia. His dad, if I'm not mistaken, owned a car dealership, maybe some other businesses, I don't know. And I believe Tommy Lasorda maybe also was from Norristown.
There was a family friendship. There was
Yes.
the Dodgers. Tommy Lasorda was doing a favor to his to a family friend.
Right. That's exactly what happened. And it all, that favor ended up paying off pretty good dividends. Now, obviously, Piazza did not play his entire career with the Dodgers, but had some really good seasons, won Rookie of the Year, and ultimately became a Hall of Famer. So he was born in Norristown, went to Phoenixville High School, which is about 27 miles northwest of Philadelphia. And in that All-Star game in 1996, he hit a mammoth home run in addition to a run-scoring double to earn MVP honors. The other two players, Reggie Jackson, you were correct. I put that in there hoping you would be able to eliminate that right away just because of the if you knew indeed the date of the year the last time the All-Star game was played in Philadelphia, which you did. So yeah, Reggie Jackson was retired by the time that game took place. Reggie Jackson was a 14-time All-Star, so played in plenty of All-Star games. He was born in Abington, Pennsylvania, and went to Cheltenham High School in Wyncote, Pennsylvania. It's just outside of Philadelphia, about 13 miles north. And Jamie Moyer was but a one-time All-Star, but in that game he did make an appearance and was credited with a hold. He was born in Sellersville, Pennsylvania, and went to Soudertown High School, which is about 35 miles north. You are nodding affirmatively. Are you familiar with all these cities I've mentioned?
All these places, and in particular, Norristown, you described it as being a certain number of miles. I think you said 14 miles northwest of Philadelphia.
20 miles northwest.
20 miles northwest of Philadelphia. It is 8 miles north of Wayne, Pennsylvania, where I was born. So Mike Piazza and I were born 8 miles apart. Phoenixville High School was one of the high schools, my high school, Radnor, used to compete against in certain sports. And so Mike Piazza was the local guy. Not as local as Kobe Bryant, by the way. Kobe Bryant was the most local. He went to my rival high school, Lower Merion.
So you are a local guy, big Philadelphia Phillies fan. And as you mentioned in our prelude to this episode, that you're going to the All-Star game. Will you also be going to any of the other All-Star game events and festivities?
I will try to go to everything that I possibly can. And I certainly don't have like tickets or anything to the All-Star game just yet. I'm just, I will go to every single possible thing that I possibly can.
Wait, you said you don't have tickets yet. I thought your brother has season tickets.
My brother has season tickets, and so
he's not
I'm
taking you?
Well, I would hope that he would, but we haven't made any firm plans yet.
Oh, I would have thought this was all hammered out already.
Dave does an amazing job of looking out for me with baseball tickets. He once helped hook up the entire Baseball Palooza crowd with tickets before our Pennsylvania-based Baseball Palooza, and he got me into the World Series. He is always standing by, ready to help out. So I'm making certain assumptions that Dave is going to be ready to help with All-Star Game tickets. We just haven't firmed up those plans yet.
Have you ever been to an All-Star game before?
I have not. No, this is a bucket lister for me.
Okay. Well, good luck to you there. I just made an assumption that the tickets were already in hand and, well, if not in hand, at least you knew they were coming your way, but good luck with that.
I'm quite confident that Dave will be there for me on this one. So
come on, Dave.
Big brother Dave. Dan, thank you so much. As always, this is a ton of fun. And hey, we'll see you next week.
Okay, I will see you then and looking forward to it.